Welcome to my talk about automated incident management. My name is Ajuna Kyaruzi. When I was thinking about writing this talk, my first feelings about automating incident management were skepticism, mostly because of the idea of automating with the use of AI. I know you've been hearing a lot about AI. This is not going to be a very classical AI talk, mostly because of my skepticism. But I wanted to spend some time thinking about why I was skeptical. Part of it was I was a little bit worried that it would just fall and just fail automatically. But mostly I was thinking about something as important as instant management in the hands of non-human hands being something I was a little bit worried about. Of course, we've been hearing about the word AI very generally. I'll be more prescriptive because we are in a room of people who can allow that. There are obviously a lot of terms that people are using interchangeably. We have Gen AI, AIOps, machine learning. We even have people using terms when they're talking about AI to mean products like ChatGPT or Midjourney. But specifically, what I want to talk about today is more about the AIOps. If you haven't heard of AIOps, is artificial intelligence for IT operations. It's the process of using AI techniques for maintaining IT infrastructure. So specifically using things like natural language processing and machine learning models into improving our IT workflows. So this is the definition that IBM has, and I trust them when it comes to definitions for things about AI. But I think the reason why maybe a lot of you are starting to glaze over a little bit when I talk about AI is because often we hear it talked about like a one size fits all or like a hammer, right? If you've heard the saying, if once you have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And I feel like that's the messaging that's been around AI. And when I think about something as intricate or personal like instant management, it immediately scares me a little bit. But I've been thinking about that fear. I heard this saying that you need to think about emotions like fear or anger like a check engine light. You have to think about why are they making me scared? And that's where I was coming from when I was writing this talk, right? Why am I so worried about it? Other than just being a person who was working in instant management for such a long time. I was like, there are so many improvements in technology that have happened. Why is this one kind of making me shiver a little bit more? So taking it all the way back, what do I mean by automation? There is the definition of automation being having machinery do work for us, right? Having non-human intervention. And we've been doing that for a long time, right? That's the whole reason why we are all in computers, is to automate things. We've all written scripts and workflows and algorithms, and that's how we got started. And they're not all technical. You can have a friendship algorithm. This one is from the show Big Bang Theory. One of the lead actors was trying to figure out how to make friends. But either way, the process of trying to get some of that more mental processes outside of us so that we can get the ball rolling is why we are all caring about automation. That's why we write scripts. That's why we write workflows. But in the process of instant management, what does that necessarily look like? We are all using automation in instant management in one way or the other. You're probably using it a lot in the manage section of this workflow. So if you think about instances, something you have to detect they're happening and then declare them and then manage them, which is obviously the big part of the thing, right? It should be a little bit more like this, where the manage part is a lot bigger. We talk about automating a lot of the things in that process of the management. That's the one that takes a long period of time. But even then, there are a lot of things that we can do to automate the other processes, right? Automating instant reviews is one that's probably very interesting to a lot of us. I've talked about that before, and I love to have conversations about it. So catch me later to talk more about automating the documentation process. But the management process is the one that I was the most scared of when it came to using AIOps, but also the one where I was like, we would get the most benefit out of it. So I spent some time looking into it. What are people doing with AIOps in organizations specifically related to instant management? There are already cool things that are happening. Meta released an article about 3 months ago talking about their work leveraging AI for efficient instant management. Essentially, what they did is they looked at all of their previous incidents and used a heuristic-based retrieval and large language modeling to try to rank what AI-assisted root causes could be for their incidents. And what they found out was they were able to automatically, using the AI, find out 42% of the time what the root cause was, which 42 is that's an interesting number. I won't say it's the best number, but it's good enough for now, right? It's a step. And I also think that if I was in an incident and around half the time it gave me an area to start, I would be pretty grateful for that than not having anything. Other cool things that are happening, I work at Datadog, so we did release a tool related to using AI in our incidents. So we've been using this internally. So we have Slack for our incident response kind of management, but also all of our internal communication, of course. And when you join an incident channel, it gives you a summary of what's going on in the incident, which is also helpful, right? What are the things to get you ramped up as early as possible? Another trend that I've been seeing is also getting information about the incident faster, right? Looking at historical information about incidents to get you more information about how to get started. If you give it all of your incident data, it's something like an AI assistant, being able to ask it questions like a search engine of being like, were there recent incidents related to this service? And what was the root cause for those? It can help you track down what's going on. But even without these more intricate kind of AI-related problems, we've already been using AI ops in finding out more about what's going on with our services. I don't know if anyone's been using anomaly monitors. These are algorithmic features that look at a historical amount of information. For example, we might need about 6 hours of information to give you like an hourly anomaly detection of traffic to like your web store. So it can, if you give it like 6 months, it might be able to tell you that, oh, in general, your afternoons are your peak season. And obviously, we've been using these in a lot of different ways, including in things like autoscaling, right? You're probably using some amount of autoscaling if you're using something like AWS. So you can, if you have the capacity, you can turn off the ones that you don't need when you don't need it. And so you can scale up when you do have high traffic. And once you have a lot of information, like the anomaly detection over time, around when you probably need to scale up a little bit more so that you're using less resources and not having it on all the time. But when I was thinking about these tools, they were all ones that I was like easy to say, yeah, I can incorporate. That's no problem. And I think the place where I was having a lot of lack of trust was in the space of like auto remediation. And part of it was just like, you just have to trust it. And I think a lot of the messaging that we have around AI tools is that they know more than us. And I reject that. I think that often I'm worried that once it's touched my things, I will not know what happened. I'll just be looking at it very confused, just not knowing what's going on. I decided to ask a few people. I attended some events like DevOps Days. I asked my colleagues, if you had an AI assistant that's part of your investigation, what do you think about it? Are you scared about it? Just to get a feel of the room. And I'll ask the room, if you had an opportunity as someone who might work in instance to have an AI assistant, how positively would you feel if it took the lead? Could I get a quick? Okay. If it was just helping in the background, people are a little bit more happy about that. But generally, I think that the messaging that I got was people don't want it to be in the front. They want it to be in the back. And one of my colleagues said an AI assistant is at best a junior engineer, right? When you think about it, it's helpful in trying to learn, but at the same time, it still needs some guidance, right? You can't fully trust it yet. It's still ramping up. With the pros and cons that come with that. We've all been junior engineers and learned, and that's how we got to where we needed. But I think a lot of the messaging, maybe part of that is I watch a lot of supernatural stuff or things like Marvel movies where we think about these AI assistants, the equivalent of Jarvis, all right? These are assistants that kind of know more than us, but mostly they just have access to a search engine a little bit faster than we do, really. And I love assistants. I use a lot of them in my home and I ask them very rudimentary questions, but I wouldn't leave them in charge. So I think that's the mindset that I had to shift for myself a little bit. So it's okay, if I think of my AI assistant like a junior engineer, what do I want it to do? So I went to Indeed, of course, I know about jobs. And I was like, what does junior engineers do? This is a very general list, including other types of engineering. And it said junior engineers do things like test components. They identify potential roadblocks. They develop solutions. But mostly they collaborate with other engineers. And that made me feel a little bit better, right? Not leaving it the reins, but more so using it as a collaborative tool. And when I talked about the check engine light earlier, I was like, the thing that would make me feel more comfortable about this is if I had more information. I don't want to just know that my engine isn't working. I want to know everything that's going on with my car. And that kind of led me to the need for observability. Obviously, that clicked a little bit faster because I do work for an observability organization. But anyway, I was just like, we're already having to deal with so many things. I don't need a random black box added to my process. I need to know what's going on inside of it. But when I think about the hierarchy of the things that I need, I probably need to get insight in what's happening first and then build my automations about what I want it to do on top of that. And then I would feel comfortable adding AI ops on top of that. And mostly I don't want it to take actions that I'm not confident in. But also, I don't want it to take actions that I haven't registered, right? I want it to still build on top of my processes of logging and event management and to be able to do things like auditing and compliance later. I need to know what actions it takes without me. So I need to build those paths first. It can't build it without me. But also, you need the data, right? In order for it to know what all of your previous incidents did and what happened with those incidents and the services that the incidents touched and the root causes, you need to have that information about those incidents already. Whatever tool you're using for that, to give it access to get that information, you also need to just measure it for quite a while before it can actually look and get even 42% of the time giving you a right answer about what the root cause might be. And thinking about similar to the incidents, but also being able to be actionable, it needs to have insight into what your system is doing. So no, even if you're using some sort of CI/CD pipeline, you need to have insight into when those fail so that it can tell you a detection when a metric is going wrong. But also, you need to build the workflows that are happening. So it has those paths of action. So you can tell it, hey, I already wrote a script to block IP addresses when we see that traffic has gone up because maybe we're experiencing a DDoS attack, right? So it led me to the idea of the narrative and expectations of that I had to reshape the narrative of what this partnership with me and an AI assistant looks like, and then reshape my expectations of working with it. It's if I wanted to do the things, I need to have the paths available to it and then the information that it needs. But at the same time, it's still a tool. I don't have to be too worried about just using a tool. I don't want to get so far as being afraid of it being a hammer that even when I do find the nails, I don't want to use them. Looking back to our incident response, there are a lot of areas where we can automate. Obviously, the manage area is pretty important, but scaling back, if there's something that you can take away from this, I encourage you to look for more areas for automation. If you want to incorporate AI ops down the line, the more data you can collect right now into the different parts of your system and how to detect so that you know all that information is available. You declare it and track down all of the teams and services that are available, and then the actions that you took to remediate. But also, you need to document what happened later so you can say, our initial actions were wrong. This is the correct thing. So when you go back and have to rely on that data to read from, you know that you can rely on the final actions, not your initial assumptions. It's very cheesy to end with a quote, so I will do. And I was looking for a quote about questioning things because that feels like what was my entire journey of doing so. And I found an Albert Einstein quote about it, where the main part about it is just, it's important to not stop questioning, even if the person you're questioning is yourself, but also the curiosity has a reason for existing. So I'll leave you with that, but also take a time to take your questions. So thank you.
All right, where do we start? Do you mind passing the mic there?
Hi. Do you think it's important to have a big red button to turn off the AI in case it's insisting on doing the wrong thing constantly?
If you asked me before I wrote this talk, I'd say absolutely. Now that I've written it and looked into it a little bit deeper, I do still think maybe, but I also would like to challenge you of how do you think it will action without you if you didn't write the pathways? So the red button that you might need, you also need it for a human when you accidentally make a change.
Yes, but that's easy. I call them and say stop.
Well, yeah, then you do the same for that.
Okay.
I think the thing I'm trying to say is just like, it can only do the things that you allowed it to do if you wrote everything correctly. I do think that we need the guardrails, but those are the same guardrails you need when you have multiple people working on a system without yourself, including our junior engineers, even if one of them is maybe an AI. Yeah.
All right, one sec. Guys, do you mind passing this for me? It's right behind you.
So you said that we can think of the AI assistant like a junior engineer.
Yes.
So the thing about junior engineers is that they become senior engineers at some point.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on what's going to happen when that happens?
So I think the graduation to senior engineer is when it's able to do auto remediation effects. And I think that's where I was getting the most scared. So I think let's not promote it until we know that it's ready. We go through a lot of work to get promoted, especially if we work at a very large organization. Probably we'll have to test it out very thoroughly to make sure that it's ready to make auto remediation actions. But all of those same guardrails about being able to have the auditing systems and logging about what it's doing and practicing it multiple times before it can action on its own are probably going to be important. I don't think I will ever get to a place where I'm comfortable with it doing auto remediation without me at least saying, confirm why to continue with the action. So I would be okay. I'm still thinking of that as auto remediation because I'm reframing it the way I have like auto scaling, where it's like I have all of the clusters already. I don't want it to go past the kind of capacity that I have scheduled. So I probably would do that same thing with like other auto remediation for an AI. But yeah, I don't know what the process would look like to promote it to senior engineer, but I would be very tough on it for sure. It's not getting a raise though. Hi.
Have you ever think about how much time you spent developing and thinking about some kind of this helper?
Mhm.
Because with us, when we try to automate and do things like that, we usually afterwards find out that we spent more time on actually developing this something that will help us than if we do it just like before manually or whatever processes we had.
Yeah, I agree with you. Immediately when you do automate something, the time spent is a lot higher in the automation than in the time saved. But we do it with the hopes that at some point, then the time that we used to spend working on that thing will reduce. I think about it similar to there's a thought that all of your incidents should be new and novel. And I would bet money if everyone in this room had only new and novel incidents, right? We don't always have the kind of capacity or the resources to be able to work on only new and novel things. We know some things will continuously happen because we haven't spent the time on it. So being able to dedicate efforts to automate that so we can start working on more new and novel things is how I kind of phrase that. It's going to be an initial investment of time and energy, but at some point we're hoping that at the very least that the thing that we're trying to automate will save us the time down the line, but also the processes we take to automate will make other automations faster. Our efforts to add more observability and guardrails will be helpful for not only using the AI ops, but also with other tools that we're hoping to build down the line. It's not going to be just one measure of improvement. Overall, your system will get better if you automate it one way or the other, even though it might take multiple quarters of your existing engineers' time while they're having to do other things that are very cool. Yeah.
All right, I've got time for one more question. All right. I think you were first.
Hi, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
How do you manage the balance between the automation and the human intervention in operations? Is there a kind of indicators or a way to manage the balance in what part you need to automate or what part you need human intervention?
Oh, okay. I think that becomes like I'm going to say it depends, and I'm sorry about that. Some things are a little bit easy to decide about, right? When a human is intervening, they're doing the same set of actions that you hopefully have written down in a run book. That might be something that you can automate. If the human is doing actions that can't be put into a run book or require very complicated, if this, then do this, then if that, then do that. Like if writing the logic of what you're supposed to do becomes very complicated, then you probably still need the human intervention, is my quick answer to that. But I will also say that as you build those different parts of that logic puzzle into like sub-services or microservices, it can get easy to then build a workflow that follows that logic. So at some point, when you first get started, only the small parts can get automated, but as you get more work into it, even the bigger portions can become so. So it's a snowball effect is how I look at it. But immediately, it's going to be the things that are very easy logically to do. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Thank you so much, Ajuna.
Thank you. I'll be here
Appreciate
all
it.
day hoping to chat with you more.